Yeah, my name is Aaron Sjoberg. I'm happy to bring the message for today. Um, thanks, yeah. So today we're continuing the series from Colossians chapter 3, and we're specifically focusing on verse 12. We're continuing the series on things above, how when Christ died and was risen from the grave, that we now set our mind on things above. Jared last week gave a great talk on what it means to put on compassionate hearts and put on kindness. Today, I'm covering gentleness and humility. Now, I am a huge Bible nerd. I love the original languages. I love the history. I'm all about that. That's how I connect with God, is whenever I'm studying His Word. But for gentleness and humility, I will say that lately, God's been teaching me another way to like day-to-day life through parenting. I have a 4 and an 8-year-old. Both are boys, and both are all the time. They're great. They're wonderful little guys. But I've been also just testing my limits, right? Just day-to-day life is just teaching me how to be gentle and how to be humble. So if you don't know me very well, and most of you probably don't, I don't think, I actually have a condition I was diagnosed with a few years ago called Meniere's disease, which affects my left inner ear. It's actually causing me to lose my hearing in that ear. It creates lots of loud ringing. It also can create balance issues, and sometimes I'll have like flat-out vertigo attacks that last from like 10 minutes all the way to like 4 hours, just depending on what's happening with my body at the time. By God's grace, I've got a handle on it a bit, and for the past year, I haven't had a serious vertigo attack, and those vertigo attacks are really, really challenging. If the whole room's spinning and you're laying on the ground, you can't do anything at all, and you're just barfing. It's gross, and it's not the best at all. But again, by God's grace, I haven't had one for about a year. I'm taking medication on it. Wait, before you clap, except for like last week. So, actually, just a little over last week, my wife and I and our kids decided to go to Zion National Park for my wife's birthday. How beautiful it is. Oh my goodness, the scenery is just amazing. And we were there, but it just took a lot of travel time. It took 5 hours in the plane. We took another 3 hours to find dinosaur tracks in the car. And my boys, they're just ready to go. They're just so full of energy. They're just all about like getting out and just running, and they're just trapped, right? And so we decided to go back in the car again on one of our days, and we're going to head up to Zion National Park, the ultimate place we're going to go to. We decided to go to a donut shop called Pink Box. Have you guys ever heard of it before? It's not really popular around here, which is why we had to go to it. We had to go to this. And they even have like this Dubai donut, which is like an Indian flavor. I love Indian food. So, am I saying it wrong? Dubai, yeah, sorry. And so the kids are now all full of energy. We get back in the car for another hour-long drive, and they're not having it. They're just going off the charts. And I'm like, this is such a beautiful like drive, all these mountains, and we're just enjoying this. And it's a great birthday for my wife. And then all of a sudden, as I get on the highway, boom, vertigo. And I'm thinking, I can man through this. I'm a man's man. I'm going to lead my family. We're not going to be bothered by this. And a second later, I'm thinking, I'm putting my family at risk. Not okay. So I ended up pulling off the side of the road. We switched. I'm like trying to get into the passenger seat. And so we get in the car, we drive, and it's like not within 5 minutes, I have to pull over, and I'm just not pretty at all. We're like there for a while. I'm like, how can I get a handle on this? And my ego is just tumbling down completely. I am just done. And eventually I'm able to get in the car. And when you have a vertigo attack, you got to lay still and just focus on one specific point. And I'm laying just there, just as still as possible, not even moving my head at all. The kids are going crazy. Shay's eventually able to drive, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm ruining this trip. This is when we're going to like the ultimate part of our trip, to Zion National Park, and I'm just ruining it. I'm just feeling so bad telling myself these stories. And Shay is really on her own because the kids they're not looking around. They're not seeing all the beautiful scenery. I'm out of commission. And I'm laying there, and I have the AC just blowing on my face. And we have wet wipes in the car. So if you're not a parent, know this about parents. We always have wet wipes in the car, always. We're like, wet wipes is just, if you don't have wet wipes in the car, there's a serious problem if you're a parent. So I take the wet wipes out. I'm like, maybe there's a little bit of relief I can get by putting some on because it's like a temperature change. So I put some on my forehead, put some down my shirt, put some in my ears. And I'm just laying there, and the kids are going crazy, and I'm like getting really angry. And I knew I was going to do a sermon on gentleness. And I'm not thinking about gentleness, and I'm telling the boys, you better be quiet or I'm taking away your treats. And out of my frustration, I'm like, and, by the way, they're like, whatever, and they're laughing. And I'm like, no more tablet time. And you gotta imagine the scene right here, how ridiculous it is. I'm like a wet wipe Frankenstein, just laying there still, shouting at my boys, no tablet time. It's completely absurd. So I get my phone out. I'm like, why is nothing working for these boys? I take my camera out because I can't turn my head. And I take I just see if I can get a picture here. And this is what I see right here. Okay, so first of all, Elliot, my son, he's like the cutest kid in the world. Even if he's not listening, he's like the cutest kid. But I look ridiculous. I need to like lower my expectations for myself. I'm like, they're being disrespectful. Come on. And part of it is, anyway, kids, they want to be motivated by love. They want to be motivated by knowing who they are and who you're calling them to be. It doesn't really work all that well when you're motivating out of your own insecurity, whether they're not being respectful or they're not listening or your anger. It just doesn't work. Really doesn't work. Now, obviously, they did have consequences to their actions, and eventually I was able to get over the vertigo attack. But, we're going to come back to this first. But, for me, my boys are great, by the way. I just want to emphasize that. My boys are listening. Actually, Shay just got a picture from the kids' crew leader in there, and my boys just laying there listening to worship music, just enthralled by it. So they're great. But just a few days ago, my son said something really bad to mommy. He shouldn't have said. And he apologized. He got on timeout. And then later that night, every night with my boys, I always say a prayer over them. I say a blessing over them. I said, bless their mind. May they know you. Their heart, may they love you. On and on and on. And then afterwards, I'm talking to my son. I said, Elliot, I love you. And your mommy loves you no matter what. We love you. You're a good boy. And we want you to grow to be a good man. And he says, even when I say that bad thing to mommy? I'm like, yeah, even then, we love you. We love you so much. And he gets this big sigh. I'm sorry. And we hug, and I'm like, we love you so much, Elliot. And his behavior improved a little bit for another day. But it just goes to show you, when you're motivated by God's love, when you're motivated by love at all, it's a much stronger way of growing. I want him to be a good man when he grows up. And this is just his testing ground right now. And God's put him in my life just for this time where I can lift him up and show him in the way he should go. And apparently, people say how you see the Heavenly Father is kind of like how you saw your father when you're growing up. So I'm like, the pressure's kind of on right now. No, I'm just kidding. But it is something I think about. I'm like, I want to represent God's love to my children. I really want to do that. And I think that's what Paul's saying here in this verse here too. I mean, he's talking to adults, but hey, we're just kids grown up, right? We need the same kind of love. So he says this, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. What's important about this passage here is that it's not simply about what you're meant to do, it's how you do it. Because God's love is our source. And when we find God's love as our source, we can follow him. We can put him on. We can't put him on if we don't first know his love. You know, the world and following Jesus are like two poles just far enough away from each other, where in order for you to grab a hold of one, you have to let go of the other. And you can't be motivated out of fear or resentment or your own anger or frustration when you're trying to put Christ on in your life. There's a lot of things about identity in our culture. There's a lot of things about identity in our culture. And our culture will sometimes reduce your identity to your expression, what you like, what you're attracted to. And that's the sum of your identity. And some of that's true. It's called expressive individualism. But it's insufficient. It doesn't go far enough on who we are as human beings. And some will say, oh, actually, it's your political affiliation. That's your identity. That's who you are, or your career. But that's a characterization. It's not real people we're talking about when we talk about our identity. You are created in God's image. And in this passage, he's telling you, first and foremost, you are chosen and you are holy. You are chosen and you are holy. Right at the very beginning of Genesis, we are created in God's image. Not only is that something about who we are, it's something that we're meant to walk into. It's our vocation. It's how we live. It's a reflection of who God is into this world. That's what it means to be human. And because of that, Jesus takes that on. He is the image of the invisible God. In chapter 1 of Colossians, Paul says this to the church of Colossae. He is the image of the invisible God. And in verse 10, just 2 verses after that, or before this, he says this. Keep on forgetting that I have control of this. And you have been clothed with the new man. In the Hebrew, it's Adam. In the Greek, it's anthropos. That is, being renewed in the knowledge according of the image of the one who created it. I think there's some grammar problems there, that one. But he is according to the image of the one who created it. So we are being shaped into the image of Christ. So when you put on Christ, you are becoming more of you. You are most you when you operate in the gifts of the Spirit. You are most you when you put on humility, on compassionate hearts and kindness and gentleness in your life. You are more you. It's like a piano that's been put inside of a room that never gets played. It just becomes this giant paperweight in the back of the room. And you can probably figure it out. You can play a little notes on, like, oh, this makes a sound. It's a sound maker. Okay? It's a very reductive way of seeing a piano. But when you see someone come in there who knows how to play the piano well, like my mom, this is what it's made for, right here. In the same way, whenever we reflect Jesus into this world, it's what you were made for. It makes you into something that's more than just simply the things you like and your interests. I'm going to nerd out for a moment. Is that okay? All right. Dearly loved. All right, so he's chosen, holy. That's who we are. That's what he starts with. As Christians, we are chosen and we are holy. Third one is dearly loved. Now, being dearly loved, it's actually it's a Greek word. Let me go here. This might sound familiar. It's agape menoi. Agape menoi. Now, what does that mean? It sounds a lot like agape, right? Because it is the word agape. But it's in the perfect passive participle tense. Perfect passive participle. Okay, what does that even mean? All right, so let's just go to the next slide here. Again, I'm nerding out. I totally know what I'm doing here. Okay. So passive, what does that mean? So I'll give you an example of an active verb in a sentence. Sam throws the ball to Sally. Sam actively threw the ball, right? Here's a passive sentence. Sam was hit by the ball from Sally. He received the ball. He received the action. When we say agape menoi, dearly beloved, this is not a love that comes from you. This is a love that you are hit by from God. This is a love that you are receiving. You are dearly loved. Perfect tense. This is actually a little bit more awkward in the English. It's a past action with abiding results or continuing results in the present. So this actually, you have to change the words around in English to get this away, but to convey this in English. But in Greek, it's just part of the word, it's part of the tense. And what this means is something like, I'll give you an example. If I say, it is written, right? It's not that it just simply was written. There's something that means that it's still standing for today. It is written. That's a very religious sounding thing, but it doesn't have to be a religious phrase. It could be like, she left the room versus she's gone. It's like, whoa. It's like a state of being. The most common way we say this is during Easter time when we say, he is risen. It's not that he simply was risen. He stands as the risen Lord now. He is risen. He intercedes for you at the Father right now. He is risen. The love that is here is based off of a past action that you did not do that has abiding results in the present. It's very hard to translate this in English. Actually, I put this through AI. I'm like, can you please translate this differently? And it couldn't do it. Because English, it's a limitation with English. You are put in a place from what God did where you are dearly loved. That is your state of being. You are dearly loved. You are dearly loved. You are dearly loved. You are chosen. You're his children. You are his kids. You are his children. Now, the participle part, some of you English teachers may know what this is. It's an adjectival verb, essentially, but it's showing you how you complete the main verb of a sentence, like clothe yourselves with Christ. How do you do that? By knowing that you are dearly loved. You cannot do this on your own strength. You can't muster this up. You can't muster up gentleness in your life. You can't muster up some sort of humility in your life. It's coming from who you are in God. It sounds super seeker sensitive, but it's not. It's actually what Paul is saying here. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about here. I'm going to actually go back to the main verse here. Oops. Let me go back. So again, I'm going to read this one more time. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Okay, so gentleness. Oops. Oh, gave a little teaser there. All right, so wrong views of gentleness. This is something that you might have heard in our culture today. You might have heard this as you're growing up or in your subculture. Here's what gentleness is not, but is often confused with. Spinelessness or fearfulness. Spinelessness or fearfulness. Avoidance. If I'm avoiding my kids because they're acting up and I'm like, sure, you deal with it, I'm not being gentle. That's a wrong view of gentleness. Timidity, passivity, always being nice or agreeable, or when you let people walk all over you. A personality type that some people have. Okay? None of those are gentleness. That's being piglet. That's not what gentleness is, biblically speaking. And you can actually believe that's what gentleness is and then reject the biblical gentleness and live in disobedience. Here's what gentleness is. This is the Greek word. I'm not going to do Greek words the whole entire time, so just, I think it's important this time. It's prauteta, and it sounds like something you order from TGI Fridays. But the prauteta, but it's prauteta, it's strength under control. That's what it means, strength under control. Actually, as a matter of fact, pratos is the root word here. And that word is regularly used in the ancient world to talk about a mighty horse, a war horse ready for battle. If you were to meet that war horse in the wild, it probably would kill you. But it's been tamed, and now it's set on a mission. It's controlled strength under control. I think of one of my boys, I wrestle with them a lot. We did this game where I trapped them, and I always let them get them way out. I always do this New York gangster accent for some reason. My apologies if I offended any New York gangsters in this room. But I say, you ain't getting out of here, and they always get out and they giggle their heads off. They just love it. And the other day, Ezra, he's like, my older son, he said, Dad, can you trap me a little better this time? Because he figures it out, like I'm holding back. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So I'm being gentle with my children. So, and it's hard for me also not to look at Jesus. We're talking about putting on Christ. In Jesus' day, there was one temple, right? That's where you met God. That's where they believed God's presence would come in the Holy of Holies between the cherubim. And only one person can go in there. It's the holiest of the holiest person. That's the high priest. And then even inside the temple, it's like a zone of quarantine where you have the inner courts, the outer courts, and the outside. Now, if you were a person who was a leper, a woman with a blood condition, if you were a person who had any kind of discussion about you having a demonic oppression over your life, or even if you were touched a dead body recently, you were not allowed to get near the presence of God. You were excluded from the temple, which means that you were excluded physically, or you were actually broken physically, but also broken emotionally and socially, because you had to be a social outcast. And then also, from your perspective, broken spiritually because you can't come to God. And we see Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, going around and touching the untouchable, touching people, and instead of him becoming impure, his purity rushes into them and makes them whole, which is one of the reasons why Jesus says, hey, go to the temple and make sure that the high priest has to take a look at you. It's not because he wants to, make sure it worked, make sure the miracle worked. That's not the point. The point is to say, I want you to have complete wholeness. I want you to be included back into the community here. And when Jesus is gentle to us, that's a wonderful thing. Thank you, Lord, for being so kind. And you pursued me. You've taken me out of my own personal exile. And he takes you all out of your own personal exile, feeling separated from people and from God, and even from in yourself. But he also calls you to clothe yourself with that. You are the hands and feet of Jesus. He is the temple, and he's a challenge to the temple of the day, and he's a temple today filled with the Holy Spirit, and we are his body. Therefore, by extension, we are the temple of Christ. We are his hands and his feet. That's important. Now, when we talk about humility, directly, humility is a posture of God, of the heart, that acknowledges God's greatness, submits to his authority, and seeks to follow Christ's example of self-giving love. Essentially, it is seeing yourself rightly. I was saying that earlier, seeing you rightly. This is about seeing yourself rightly. It isn't having an inflated view of yourself, nor is it debasing yourself. This is important. Because that same word, it's originally in the Greek language, it's translated as humility, he uses in the previous chapter. He's giving you an example of how, let's go to 2:18. So I'm going to read 2:18 right here. This is actually referring to what the false prophets, the false teachers were telling the Colossian church to do. They were synchronizing, it's called syncretism. It just means they're combining their pagan worship of false deities that were out there that they believed in. These false, and they called them angels. By the way, sometimes angels are the good guys in the New Testament. Sometimes they're referring to the bad guys. So he's saying that they are doing honor to these deities, which were coming from their paganism. They're combining that with their Jewish practices. And they're saying, this is how you become right with God. And he says this, insisting, delighting, which is the same word, on asceticism. That word there is translated as asceticism, which means debasing oneself for. That's what we translate as humility in the next chapter. It's a false sense of humility. It's not humility, it's humiliation. And worship of angels and spiritual beings. 23 says this, these have indeed an appearance of wisdom, meaning that the practices of pagan practices that they were doing, in promoting self-made religion and asceticism, that's false humility, and severity to the body. But they are of no value in stopping the indulgence of the flesh. Now, the people in Colossae, around that area, they were all a part of a larger culture that was mostly paganistic. And they believe that you can add just Jesus to your group of gods. That's fine. Why would you want to get rid of the other gods? You can't. You just add Jesus to the other gods. They believe that. And therefore, they worship some of these same other gods they grew up with. And one of them was named Cybele. Now, Cybele was the most dominant pagan belief in that area at the time. And they had different kinds of parties and orgies and things like that that are not so good. But they also had priests in their own religion in which the men, if they were a priest, would castrate themselves. They would debase themselves. They would say, this is my honor to this heavenly being here. This is the way I honor that. This is the way I humble myself. It's not humility. It's humiliation. It's dehumanization. Now, there's a spectrum of what that looks like. This is on the extreme, a far end. Like, if you're going really, really far into humiliating yourself, that's like the far end. But there's also all along the way that we can do that, where we say to ourselves, I'm so stupid for saying that. Or I'm so dumb for saying that. And we actually think there's value in this. I'm such a failure. No one could ever love me. What would Paul say to that? These have no value. None. We cannot operate out of beating yourself up. You cannot operate that way. That's not your right source. Your source is this. You are chosen. You are holy. And you are dearly loved. Out of that, we put on Christ. Now, the widespread worship, we can often think that as, oh yeah, hey, these people, they were worshiping because it was their tradition. They wanted to keep that Cybele god or that Helios or whatever god they wanted to worship. They did it because it was just part of their tradition or because they liked it. A lot of these people grew up in that area, and they did it out of fear. They were terrified of letting it go. It wasn't simply that they were worshiping these gods. It was beliefs that they had. They couldn't let it go. Because if they stopped worshiping this Demeter or this Cybele or whatever god, that might mean next year my crops don't come. Therefore, my family dies, starvation. Or maybe I'm going to lose my career and my job, or be put in slavery if I don't do this honoring to this God. They did it out of fear. Now, there was even a phrase that was said among Christians, about Christians. Tertullian says this. Tertullian is a church father. Because so many Christians were rejecting the false gods eventually after this Colossian church heresy. Tertullian says this, quoting the pagans. If the Tiber floods in the city, which is a river, or if the Nile refuses to rise, or if the sky withholds its rain, if there's an earthquake, a famine, a pestilence, at once the cry is raised, Christians to the lions. Well, why would he say that? Why would that be something anyone would say? Because these Christians aren't worshiping, acknowledging the things we told them to acknowledge. And therefore, there's an earthquake that just happened. That's why. It's their fault. It's kind of like their own version of confirmation bias. But, and what would Paul say to that? Well, he says this in chapter 2, verses 14 through 15. He, Christ, has destroyed what was against us, a certificate of indebtedness expressed in decrees opposed to us. He has taken it away by nailing it to the cross, disarming the rulers and authorities, these principalities of darkness. He has made a public disgrace of them, triumphing over them by the cross. Not only did he defeat them in that, but he shamed them for it. He shamed the powers that be. And that could be old gods that we have, people have had. I don't think most people don't have like a little G god they're worshiping on the side in this room. I hope not. But you might have something else in your life that you're holding on to. And what God is calling you to is say, hey, look to Christ. Look to the heavenly things. Focus on things above. There's actually a old Christian from the early church doctrine called Christus Victor. It's actually really emphasized in the Eastern Orthodox Church that specifically calls to attention this. When they talk about Jesus' death, his cross, that was made effectual by his resurrection and therefore made a cosmic statement across all time because he stands as the risen Lord. That cross is a testimony to say, I don't have to follow this anymore. I am free. He freed me from that. Any kind of indebtedness to any kind of, whether it be rulers or authorities or spiritual beings, or even my own ideology, he nailed it to the cross. Tim Keller says this: an idol is anything that absorbs your heart and imagination more than God. Anything you seek to give you what only God can give. If I have that, then I'll feel like my life has meaning. Then I'll know I have value, and I'll feel significant and secure. There's a phrase that we say in Christian circles a lot. You become like what you worship. If there are things in your life that you're valuing higher than Christ, if you lose it, life is devastated. And if you get it, you're better than other people. John Mark Comer, he's the author of the Practicing the Way course that some of us are doing right now, led by Tim Downey. It's a great course. I'm learning a lot. But John Mark Comer says this. Oops. Oh, we missed that quote. Yeah, let me go back. There you go. Oops. There. I'm still not used to this yet. There you go. What you give your attention to is the person you become. So I'm just going to list a few things here that might be something that maybe you have in your mind. It's not an exhaustive list of maybe instead of an idol that you're worshiping, maybe it's a belief that you have that you need to take off because it's keeping you from putting on Christ. It's getting in the way of your knowing who you are. It could be about your career. Something like this. My job or my performance success in it defines my entire worth as a person. Or with relationships. If my partner, friend, loved one, my partner, friend, loved one should complete me, make me whole, and fulfill my life and my needs. Now, both of those are grounded in security. Maybe the career one is saying, hey, I've had difficulty in my life and I need to show myself that I'm worth it. Money. My self-worth is directly tied to my net worth. This might be coming from a poverty mentality, but it's a belief that can get in your way. And if you have someone who crosses that, good luck. Singleness. My singleness means that I am fundamentally incomplete, unworthy, or a failure, and my life cannot truly begin or be happy until I find a partner. It's a lie. Here's a good one. Politics. You guys want to talk about politics for a little bit? No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to talk about it. But this could be an idol. I mean, actually, Mark Sayers, he's a church planter and an author. He says that Christianity in America has actually declined, not because people aren't confessing to be Christians, but because existentially they've converted to a different religion called politics, with two denominations, right and left. Right and left. So that could be a god in your life. It controls the narratives. My political opponents are not just wrong, but they are inherently evil, stupid, or deliberately malicious. Or if I'm not as loud and aggressive as the next guy, he will win. Therefore, I can't be gentle. Or if I choose humility, I'll be railroaded and not heard. Can you operate in gentleness with that mentality? Or humility? Parenting. Here's another one. My child's achievements, behavior, and choices are a direct reflection of my success or failure as a parent, and therefore my own self-worth. Paul reminds the Colossians and us that Christ has disarmed not just the gods of the past, but these gods and false beliefs of today. A fear, performance, and identity to truly put on your Lord. Put on Christ. We must let go of these idols that claim our lives and our attention, and I feel that pull. I'm saying this authentically. I feel that pull in my own life. It pulls me, and I have to say, no, I'm going to have to follow Jesus. I'm going to have to. And that starts by listening, being incarnational. Part of what it means to be gentle is an incarnational element that's there, where we enter into another person's world and see from their perspective. It's called active listening, or if you're in sales, it's called putting yourself in the odds are. Some people put it that way. But you're trying to understand from another person's perspective. So, in summary, number one, we put on Christ, his gentleness and his humility, by standing on what he says about you. You're chosen, holy, and beloved. We put off our idols and put on Christ by looking to his victory over every false power. And the third one, you clothe yourself with Christ's humility and gentleness by drawing near to him. For those people who say to yourselves, why am I such this way? And you beat yourself up. Or maybe you're a person who just finds your life in your career and your job, or even in your parenting or in your relationships. I invite you just to open yourself up in prayer to the Lord. And I don't mean just say a prayer to God. I mean, open yourself up like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, letting it all out. When Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, he said, let this cup pass from me, but not my will, but yours be done. He wasn't reluctant in going to the cross, but he knew that there was a part of him that wasn't resolved. He knew that there was a part of him that he wanted to just be fully engaged, fully there. If there's insecurities, doubts, struggles, hopes, dreams, say those things to the Lord. Speak those things to God and ask God to speak in them and to them. We can say, this is who Christ is. This is who God is. He's overcome these things. We can tell ourselves, we are dearly loved. But unless you're connected to him, unless you talk to him, unless you spend time with him, it can't be made effectual. They're just words. So I invite you, pray. Spend time with prayer. Philip Yancey says this. He's an author, and he's an ancient historian too. If prayer stands at the place where God and human beings meet, meaning where your God and your life meets, not just the things you say, but who you are, and you're laying that before him. He says, if that's where God and human beings meet, then I must learn about prayer. Because when you do that and you open yourself to God's Spirit, God's love is not passive. It forms you, it reshapes you, it enables you to take off the old self, to clothe yourself with Christ, like going into a battle. You're God's kids. You're his children. He loves you. He wants you to walk in that. Not just simply know, he wants you to walk in that.